morning and welcome to the Inside Story. Today I am delighted to be joined by Dom Watson, author of the Rockstar Retirement Programme. Morning, Dom. How are you doing?
Morning, Tara. Awesome, thanks.
So, I was thinking the other day, it's now been 4-5 years since we met.
I think it's nearly 5, yeah.
It'll be 5 this April, I think, because you joined me at or you met me at the London Book Fair when I was exhibiting for the first time. So all of those days way back then. So it's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has. I think I used to have a bit of black hair back then as well. No, I'm lying.
So I remember I was really excited about the book fair, and it was such a sort of massive opportunity. And I had this little tiny cubby hole, and I was frantically touting for business and trying to get people to come over and say hello. And you did. And I remember you saying, I'm going to have my book finished by November. So this was in the April, and you said, I'll have it finished by November. Didn't work, did it?
Might have been a slight delay.
Yeah. By slight, 18 months, 2 years?
Yeah, I think it was nearly 2 years. Yeah.
But there's a good reason for that, isn't there?
There is. There are many reasons. I've got many excuses for that. It was bloody massive to start with. So the original manuscript was about 150,000 words?
Yes, something like that.
And I think the final one was about 76,000. So there was a lot going into it. And I'm pretty busy generally without the book. So I had my excuses anyway. And I wanted to get it right. It was very important to make it as good as I could get it.
So I think, so for me, that was kind of because, I'd not been running FCM. I think I'd been going for sort of 2 years. Sorry, you have to forgive Aiden. He's got one on him this morning. So, yeah, I think I've been running the company for about 2-3 years at that stage. So it was all still very new. And I think I was just starting to go into the non-fiction side of things. And it sort of taught me that all of these ideas where people sort of say, yep, I can turn the book around, it's no problem at all. Actually, they're probably the books that aren't going to work quite so well. And it's the ones where you take the time and you think about what's going into it and how it's going to reflect you and the business that actually work better.
Definitely. Is there a question in there?
Well, I was kind of hoping you could elaborate on that one. So what was your writing process? What were you thinking as you were sort of going into work? Where did you come from initially, and what did you want the book to do?
So it all originates from my job, which is as a business broker and business transfer agent and business consultant. And I've been working for a number of years helping people to do what I was paid to do, which was to help them to prepare and sell their businesses for the most money. But over a period of time, I was learning that actually selling their businesses for the most amount of money, I did my job very well, and my company did our job very well, but it wasn't necessarily making them happy. So it came from a position of wanting to provide better advice to people and more rounded advice, not just a sort of narrow financial, conventional sense. And I had a situation after a few years, I was getting people who had sold businesses who were coming back wanting to buy new businesses to fill the void because the retirement and the life plan that they'd kind of been sold by all the conventional people just wasn't really working for them. So I went on something of a journey of discovery, and I looked into economics, I looked into the financial services, I looked into health, I looked into lifestyle, and I wanted to bring all of these things into the book to make people think a bit more in a 3D way about life planning and retirement, really. And it just took me off on a completely diverse journey, which is part of the reason it took so long. The book's got tons of case studies of people who've done things slightly differently and have resulted in being very, very happy. So the process started off with a fairly sort of narrow scope, and it just exploded in all sorts of different directions. And having worked with me a few times now, I think you know how my brain works. And I think certainly having you there to rein me in and focus and pull out the bits that were the most pertinent and the most powerful was absolutely instrumental in the success of the book, I think.
I think we've got a picture that I'll show that of us actually going through that process. And I remember, is it in the days when you could actually sit with somebody and actually remember those days when you could actually sit next to someone, and you brought in this huge, great, in fact, there was more than one folder, wasn't there?
There were two, yeah, two A4 ring binders, yeah.
And I sort of looked at it and went, right, okay, so that's got to go. That's got to go. That's a repeat. That doesn't fit in this one. And I think we came to the end of it. Oh, Odin, you are being naughty. Came to the end of it, and we had a second book almost from the stuff that we'd taken out of the first one. But you, like you say, you'd gone into a lot of research in the things that make people happy, the reasons why the conventional idea of retirement is wrong. We all think very much that retirement means getting to 70 and getting an allotment, doing some golf and just chilling out. But actually, that's not what life's about, is it?
Absolutely not. I mean, it was very poignantly last week. I had a friend of mine who, from the running club, very fit guy, 57. He retired 9 months ago. Didn't read my book, unfortunately, and he just died in his sleep.
Oh, God.
57 last week. So, and this is something that I saw. This is one of the big drivers for me in actually writing the thing, was to get the message out there. And I think people that just work so flat out and then suddenly stop, particularly business owners, but I think anybody who works hard and then just suddenly stops, I think it's not good. I think people need a degree of purpose and degree of stress, and that's why I'm not going to spoil the total message of the book, but it's about a hybrid solution. It's trying to find the best of all worlds. Sorry. 1
second, dog. I'm just going to slide out to the side and let the dog out. 1 second.
No problem.
Come on, you. There we go. Are the joys of modern interviewing. It's all good fun. So there's been a number of firsts really with you. You the first author I picked up. Sounds terrible, but at the book fair. And then actually, whilst you weren't necessarily the first audio book that I did, you were the first one that I was more involved with the process in. So we got the audio book done 2 years ago. Yeah. And again, one of the things that we've learned from working together is that you have a very good idea in your mind of exactly what you want the final product to look like, and how you want it to come across. And it was the same very much with the audio book, that you knew that it needed to have the right tone of voice, and you knew that you wanted it's done specifically. So what sort of drove that for you?
I think, I suppose something we should probably mention is another reason I wrote the book in the first place was because normally somebody who does what I do would do a lot of marketing through public speaking. And I hate public speaking, and I don't like being the centre of attention. So it's quite important to understand that the driver for writing the book was an easier way for me to get my message out and communicate with people. So when it came to the audiobook voice, I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and there was one particular voice that I just really liked. It had a warmth and authority about it. And it was a chap called Michael Maloney. And I just thought it was just perfect. And hence you and I went and pursued trying to get him to do it, which thankfully he did. And it just gave the book an authority, and I think it just gave it credibility immediately. And for me, I mean, it's one of the sort of poignant moments of my life, being in the studio and hearing the words that you wrote several years ago, probably about 6 o'clock in the morning, being read by this amazing authoritative voice. And he's got touches of David Attenborough in his voice sometimes. He's just absolutely brilliant. So it was just certainly one of the greatest moments of my life was hearing that for the first time and making me actually believe that my book was okay, really, and that we managed to persuade him to do it. So that was kind of a groundbreaking moment for me and one of my proudest moments.
It was just truly lovely as well. Which was the
nice guy.
It made it so easy, and he was just so much fun. I would have loved to have got the outtakes from that actually. Because he was very, very particular on certain things and knew straight away when he'd said something that didn't quite flow. For me, it was a great opportunity to see that side of things being done. And what goes into an audiobook. So a lot of people think, you just sit there and record it and just read it out and that's it. But it's not. It's there's a lot of editing that goes in, and also checking the book to make sure that bits that you might refer to somebody reading obviously won't translate to somebody listening to it. So you can't say, take a look at the picture on page whatever, or your turn now, fill this in. One of the things that the book does have is a lot of scope for people to actually answer questions and figure out for themselves where they're going. And that was something you were really kind of keen to do, is to sort of make the book almost interactive for people, to make them actually sort of stop and think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very the book. A lot of people will read, and it's in some ways it's a philosophy book. In some ways it's a self-help book. It's kind of a strange hybrid. I think it's very easy to read a book and be inspired and then forget about it in 5 minutes. So I was really keen to actually get people to take practical action. Just going back to the audiobook sessions. It was quite amazing actually. I would also put some of the success of the recording down to Matt, the sound engineer. He was really exacting, and he gave Michael a really hard time because he wanted it to be really good. And it was just amazing watching those two work together. And also just Matt hadn't read the book, and as I was listening to it, he was laughing at the jokes, and it made me feel good about the whole process. And he kind of got into it, and he really wanted it to be a work of art and something the best thing it could possibly be as well. So I just wanted to mention him because he was amazing too. And sometimes it's about teams, and Michael gets all the glory because he's the amazing voice, but actually Matt really brought that out in him as well. So just wanted to give him a bit of a shout out, really.
Yeah, because behind the scenes, I know there was a few bits where he'd send files across it and he'd say, "What do you think of this? I don't think that's quite right." Yeah. And he picked up on even just sort of softer S's that perhaps we wouldn't have heard, but he knew that someone listening to it, it might suddenly sort of sound wrong.
Oh, it got even more than that. He was actually, by the end, he got so comfortable with me, he was suggesting word changes. So he was actually starting to rewrite my book, which I was cool with because I wanted it to be the best it could be. But it got that kind of the relationship was that comfortable, and I was fine with that. It was great.
No, I think we got lucky with the pair of them. They were both brilliant, and I think one of the things that we've found with the book is that people that have read it. Even my mum. So she was 73 when she read it, and she said, "This is brilliant." She said, "Actually, because my mum's only just retired, so she's completely out of the lifestyle that you might suggest." But she found herself doing the activities and saying, absolutely, I totally agree with this. This is, I wish I'd done this 10, 15 years ago, so I could have been more prepared. Although she wouldn't have done, because she's a bit mad and likes working too much, so she probably wouldn't have taken the time out. In fact, she's still working now, and I've got her working for me. So, but it's as you said, it's keeping the brain active, but finding the right balance, isn't it?
It is. No, it absolutely is. And it's been quite interesting. I get probably every month, I get 3 or 4 random emails from people out of the blue who've read it. And I had one a couple of weeks ago. I think I actually phoned you and told you about it. And it was a lady who, her husband had bought the book, and she said, "Oh, I thought it was going to be rubbish." And then she sent me an email. She said, she said, probably too much information, but last night I was in the bath. And my husband was reading sections of the book, and we were both giggling away. And it's really been an uplifting thing. So I get certainly a number of those every month. So it's definitely hitting the spot with some people, it makes me feel amazing to try and get the message out there.
Yeah. And I think, in terms, so yeah, there was a practicality for writing the book, as you said. It was a way of meaning that you didn't have to do lots of public speaking, but it also was a way of you being able to sort of have a bigger, better, more meaningful business card that you could sort of send out and introduce the company to people and just sort of say, this is our kind of ethos. How's it worked in terms of the business?
Absolutely amazingly, transformationally, really. There's a thing about 7 points of contact in I suppose sales and marketing, and having those points of contact. And there's another theory which is 7 hours of contact. And what we offer is big ticket. It's very big ticket. We're helping people to sell their businesses, something that they've worked for 20 odd years, and our fees aren't cheap. We add a lot of value, but it's probably one of the biggest decisions that someone will make. What I've found with the book is, in some instances people will buy it. In other instances, I'll actually send them a copy, and it just shows the ethos. And there's a lot of soul in the book. It's very honest, and it's just been totally transformational. And sometimes I have a conversation with somebody, an initial sort of exploratory conversation, they'll go off and read the book, and then the second time you speak to them, it's almost like they know you, and they will give you so much personal information. And certainly in what I do, people come to you often because there's a problem. They've got something, a health issue or something going on, or there's a catalyst and a stimulus for them to contact you. And the book just gets them to open up. And in doing that, it allows me to do my job better, because I can understand what they need and come up with much more strategic and sensible solutions. And quite often people come to us wanting to sell a business because of problems. And actually, if you solve the problems, they don't need to sell the business. And again, this is all part of the message underpinning the book. It's just been absolutely transformational for the business. It's also just a mission for me. I just want to get the word out there. So it's been great financially in terms of driving new business into what we do. But I genuinely have a passion. The royalties I get, I just churn back into the website, because I want people to live today and tomorrow. It works on so many levels for me. It's been brilliant.
Because so you touched on the website there. So it's the whole sort of program is not just the book, is it? You've got the website going on, and there's lots of case studies that you keep adding, and lots of ways that you sort of helping people understand. But you also live the lifestyle yourself, don't you?
I try to. I aspire to. I was very in the book. I hate these self-help books where someone sticks themselves on a pedestal and says, "Look at me, I'm wonderful," and copy me, and you'll have a wonderful life. And in the book, I certainly didn't take that approach. I really used a cohort of people I admired, and I asked them questions about how they did it and what they did, and I just built all of those and my observations into the book. So I'm following and aspiring to live the same journey. And one of the things is, and I've just touched on it previously, is it's about living for today and tomorrow, and not just kicking your future enjoyment into your retirement at 60 or 65 or whatever. So I try to have a balance, and I work bloody hard, and I know you do as well, but fortunately I love what I do. And again, that's another message of the book. But it's made me do a lot of things I might have pushed back. So since writing the book, I've walked up Kilimanjaro. You've got a photo somewhere with me holding the book at the top of Kilimanjaro. Yeah. I've been into the wilds of Ethiopia, been wild swimming. So I'm trying to aspire to really just to go for it, to make sure that I enjoy life today and tomorrow. So, and it keeps me honest, because I suppose even though I'm not saying I'm wonderful and follow me, I need to be taking my own medicine, really. And so it kind of keeps me honest in making sure that I am living and I guess living what I'm preaching and advocating for the people. So it's been a really good catalyst for me to just go for it and have a great time.
1 second, Dom. Do excuse me.
No problem.
Never work with children and animals, they say. or just don't have either of them.
You would have made a great Blue Peter presenter. Do you know that?
Maybe that's my passion. Maybe I should go on to working on kids TV.
I think you're pretty good at what you do, actually. Yeah,
I'll stick to the books. So speaking of the book, we've as you can see, we've got the two versions. We've got a new editions just come out with a brand new cover. Why the change of cover, Dom?
Some people fed back that the cover was a bit masculine. And it was a bit Marmite, really. It was great because it does stand out because it's very different, and it's got the kind of the yellow and black and a bit like a bee kind of colouring, which kind of makes people look at it. But for some people found it a bit harsh, so I wanted to have something a little bit calmer that might be more mass appeal, and that would also appeal to female readers, because there are plenty of female case studies in there as well, some amazing female case studies. So I wanted it to be a bit less gender specific, and a bit calmer, and just see if that attracted more readers, really.
So do leave us a message in the comments if you think you prefer cover number 1 or 2. So since this one, you've started writing 2 of the business books, but interestingly, you've also started writing a fiction. Now this kind of gets me going, because normally you have a non-fiction camp and a fiction camp, and the two rarely, it just happens, the two rarely kind of cross over. So how different are you finding writing fiction to writing the business books?
It's completely different. I'm absolutely loving it. I guess the biggest thing is dialogue. And obviously the way you communicate and showing rather than telling, and all of those things. And I have zero training in writing. I've just thrown myself into it. So I'm learning, and my style is definitely changing. And I thought it was going to be so the book we're talking about is The Salt Witch, which is a novel. It's going to be a trilogy. It's massive already, and it was going to be a bit of a thriller, weaving in local legends. I live in a small village outside of Northwich, so it's trying to weave in local legends and create some mythology for my local community. But it's brought out something I didn't know I had, and people, when I've talked about it now, they do reflect there is humour in Rockstar, but it's becoming almost comedic, and I'm loving writing this sort of comedic dialogue, and yeah, it's just taken me on a whole other journey. My issue is time, so that's I think 76,000 words at the moment, and I've told about about a third of the story so far. So I'm absolutely loving that. I wish I had more time to do it. It's a frustration that I can't. There's only so many hours in the day. I've got a lot going on, but I'm absolutely loving it. It's been brilliant.
So what's going to come first, Salt Witch or the second business book?
I've got to pay the bills, so probably the second business book. And in fact, I should probably elaborate on that. So the second business book is called How to Exit Your Business Like a Rockstar. So it's more technical and more specific to business owners, whereas the first book is very much for anybody in any career or life path, really. And I couldn't have done the second book without the first book, because what it's done is it's opened doors to me by being a published author. So the second book is, again, I've gone out to a cohort of people who've sold their businesses. And the original remit was people who sold their businesses for between 1 million and 20 million, which is a lot bigger than the general business I currently sell. And it's kind of exploded. So the biggest business sale that I've interviewed, I think I've done about 7 hours of interviews with him. It was supposed to be a 1 hour interview, and we've kind of developed a friendship. But he sold his business for something like 220 million, quite astronomical, and such a nice guy. So that book is underpinned by real life case studies, and I'm currently working on just trying to bring the commonality and the themes together to help people to understand what those common threads are that help people to develop these businesses in the first place, and then to actually successfully exit from them, which is no mean feat. when they get to that kind of scale, and make a business not reliant upon you. So there's no way on God's earth I would have got those interviews without having the first book. So often I'd get in touch with somebody within their organisation, and they'd ask a bit more, and I'd send them a copy of Rockstar, the first one, and then they wanted to, they actually loved what I was doing and wanted to get into it. It's been absolutely amazing. So again, it's just it's like a step ladder of personal development for me, and it just opened so many doors. It's been absolutely incredible.
It's fantastic watching how you've sort of developed and the things that you've got involved in, and the different paths that you've taken that you perhaps wouldn't necessarily have done. And you, I mean, for saying you don't like public speaking, you have put yourself out and done lots of different things that have taken you out of your comfort zone, and you have sort of really kind of got behind the book. One of the things I love is that you're so passionate about it still. You know, say we're sort of 4 years into working on it and getting it out, and yet it's still got that same passion and drive. But you're such a champion for everybody else as well. I mean, I know you've worked with me, and you've kind of said to me, Taryn, you need to look at this, or, you know, stop and think about the things that you're doing. And I know you've always been a sort of massive advocate for sort of giving me more time for me, because I'm useless at doing it. And I think looking at how you've sort of changed and developed, and I'm not going to use grown because that's really passé, but you know, you've floated along with the book, I think, and it's dragged you kicking and screaming out of your own self and made you sort of go, all right, okay, so where do I go now? And I love that. I love seeing what the book's actually done, because when we were first talking about it, you were very I suppose sort of laid back a little bit about, well, you know, if it takes off, that's great. You know, I'd like it to do this, like that. But now you're sort of like, oh, it's going to open doors. I'm going to do this, and it's going to do that. And I think that's just great.
No, it has. I've definitely been on a journey, and to me, again, one of the messages is about writing your own story. You know, so I wrote the book, but actually, it's taking me on a journey, or I'm taking it in on a journey. I'm not quite sure which order it goes in, but it's been brilliant, and I'm quite passionate. I just believe everybody has a really good book in them. First of all, I think everyone's really interesting. I think everyone's got a talent, and I just want people to wake up and smell the coffee and realise that and go for it. Really, I mean, for me, I was the first year to take GCSEs, and I did an O-level a year early, which was English. I failed it, and I got a D, and I took the very last ever sitting of. So I was 15. I was young for my year, so I was 15, and I took the very last sitting of English O-level, and I scraped a C, and I was delighted. So that's my background in terms of my literary, I suppose, benchmark. So people always talk about writing books. And I just think people just need to start and do it, because it's I can't say the word cathartic. And it also, when you start to write things down, you start to make connections. It's almost like teaching. You start to understand the subject matter in much more depth, and you think about it much more. So it makes you much more authoritative and clear in your own mind as well. So I think for anybody who has any sort of passion, I mean, we've all got hidden passions within us. I think writing a book, whether it's a small book, whether it's a blog, but just writing stuff is just absolutely brilliant. And that's another thing that's come from this book. So many other people have come to me who haven't read the book, and they tell me about their sort of latent things that they did when they were young, and then they kind of gave up. So I've had people whose businesses I've sold have gone on to become artists. I've got a guy down in Salisbury who helped him to sell his business, and he still has a 25% share in that business, but he now has an art gallery, and 2 days a week he just paints, and that's what he wants to do. I've got another guy who recently told me that we're working on his exit plan at the moment, and he always wanted to be a train driver, so he's having lessons to drive trains at the moment. And there's just so many people, and I think everybody out there has something within them. And I think sometimes just putting pen to paper and starting to think about it and process it, it kind of stimulates action. And that's all I did. I mean, I decided I was going to write a book because I had a message. I immediately commissioned someone to create a cover for me. It wasn't ever used, but I put it on my board next to my desk. I told all the people I cared about I was writing a book, and I did it to make sure I bloody well wrote the book, so that I was going to embarrass myself if I didn't. So it's just about getting started. So I'd say for anybody that has any sort of latent demand, even just sort of writing a plan or writing something down, it's just a magical thing to actually taking a little step further towards doing it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've gone off on one now. But...
No, that's great. It kind of neatly leads me into, so what would you say to people then that are, currently, obviously we've been in lockdown, it's been a time of I think growth for some people, but also feelings of frustration and restriction for others. What's your message coming out of lockdown for certainly business owners and people in general? What do you say?
I think I've been a bit lucky because the sectors that we work in are primarily healthcare, and they've been very robust. So I have a bit of a biased view, and I think I've come out of this pretty well, actually. So it's difficult to say. I think really life's what you make it, and I think one door closes, another opens. And I think certainly for me, I've got to know my local area. I've been on runs and cycle rides and all sorts, and just seized the opportunity. Working from home, I've been able to go on a lot more runs and walks in the middle of the day, which I wouldn't normally be able to do when I work in Manchester. So I think it's just seize the day and make the most of any situation. I have to be a bit quiet at times because I do feel I've come through this in such a positive way. Yeah. And I don't want to, and I know some people have really struggled with it. But again, there are a lot of, within Rockstar, there are a lot of tools and ideas which I think would help people. I'm not trying to sell it. I have a positive I have a positive mindset, and I think you can, I think really life is what you think it is. Yeah. And it's, that would be my view really. So I think just try and make the best of every situation and look at the positives.
Well, on that upbeat note, I will let you go back to your day. If you do want a copy of How to Retire Like a Rockstar,
sure, horribly wrong.
So How to Retire Like a Rockstar by Don Watson. It's available from all good bookstores. It's available on Amazon. I believe you have copies as well that you can sign to send out. Is that correct?
Okay.
And if you want to know more about the retirement program, that sounds awful. It makes it sound like you're in your 70s. The Rockstar program. What's the website, Dom?
So it's www.rockstarretirement.com.
You can find out lots of amazing stories, like people that make the most fantastic. Did we ever do anything with those nuts?
Didn't quite work out, but I have another idea for that, so we'll talk about off camera.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So stories about nuts.
Australian sandalwood nuts. Okay. Imported. It's a long story.
Right. Well, Dom, it's been lovely to have you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and get cracked on with the second book.
I will.
Thank you.
Love to see you again. Thanks, Taryn.